Hey everybody, good to see you again. So continuing the composite planets through the houses series today, let's talk about Jupiter through the composite houses. So Jupiter in synastry and in composite charts is where we combine our enthusiasm, our hope, what we look forward to, the vision for our life, our beliefs. In composite charts, it's the combination of those things. In synastry, it's more how we relate to each other in regards to those things, or from the point of view of those things, of hope and faith and enthusiasm. So in composite charts, Jupiter is also how we combine our judgment, and that can be for better or worse. It depends on aspects and what all is going on in there. What is the story of Jupiter in the composite chart? So it also describes how we'll grow as a couple, how we'll evolve, how we'll act in ways that keep things from being repetitive. So it's, how we'll look to the horizon and what is there to hope for? What is there to still bring into the relationship? So it's what we grow towards. When composite Jupiter comes into the first house, the shared hope and enthusiasm and what we look forward to and grow towards, that's happening in areas of life that are about going out and getting what we want, boldly asserting ourselves. So it's a bold couple. It adds to the boldness of a couple. Agreement about what should we pursue, what it is that we both see as adventurous or the next hill to climb. Even though we have Jupiter coming into a house that is more descriptive of ego or of offense or defense, the first house, Jupiter is naturally a fire planet, comes from a fire house itself in Sagittarius in the 9th. And then when it's in the first house, this is a very natural place for it to be because it's a trine house to Sagittarius, which is Jupiter's home. So it does very well in a traditionally fire house. So there's a lot of agreement about taking action. What are we doing? What are we inspired to do more in the moment? So it's a very adventurous place for Jupiter to be. And there's a lot of agreement about how we're going to use our energy. What are we going to direct our resources towards? So it's not the most philosophical place for Jupiter to be. It's more inspiring adventure, pushing the envelope, doing new things, living on the edge. If the couple is influencing each other's judgment in a way that is not completely healthy or realistic or even safe, and we have Jupiter coming into the first house, that could contribute to the errors in judgment related to risk-taking, bodily harm, not looking into the pool to see if there's water before we jump into it. So the first house is where we have experiences related to the physical self, the body, the maintenance of the physical self, the right to be. So if we have compromised judgment, if we're influencing each other in ways that are not wise, and we have Jupiter in the first house, and that can contribute to the encouraging each other to do things that can actually cause us harm, that can have physical repercussions. So you want to look at how Jupiter is aspected, of course. When composite Jupiter is in the second house, we have a couple who is mutually combining their penchant for expansion and their need for growth in the area of life where we have experiences of wealth, gain, material comfort. So it's a good place for Jupiter to be when it comes to contributing to more stuff, more material gain, more wealth, because we have hope, the yearning for more, in the area of life where we're going to be buying things and where we're seeking luxury. So look how Jupiter is aspected. If we're over encouraging each other, in ways that aren't completely wise, because Jupiter is also wisdom. It's our combined wisdom and our personal wisdom. In a composite chart, it's our combined wisdom. So if our wisdom isn't operating as wisdomy as it should, then we can see the overdoing happening or some unforeseen consequences happening in the area of life where we find finances and we find buying things and we find credit cards and, no, credit cards would be more Pluto, 8th house stuff, because that's where we find debt. But where we spend and what we make to spend, our personal wealth, that's all 2nd house stuff. So that's what's going to be affected difficultly. So if we have a well aspected Jupiter and there isn't an overdoing, there isn't unforeseen consequences, then there can be reasonable gains and there can be a lot of looking forward to investing and just feeling like we're lucky in the area of life where we're dealing with the money. Jupiter in the composite 3rd house is very stimulating because we look forward to talking. We look forward to the common hours between the two of us. It's fun to do the little things. It's very similar to having Venus in the 3rd house because there's an enjoyment of each other's time and just kind of the white noise that we'll deal with in daily life. So there's a lot of joking with each other when Jupiter comes into the 3rd house. A lot of humor that we wouldn't call exactly dry. It can be very very loud and fun to listen to. So it's an enjoyable place for Jupiter to be because communication tends to be more expansive. We can throw some philosophy or some talking about some very real things or expansive things into our daily conversation. And it encourages more exploration when it comes to mental things. What are our opinions? What do we think about things? So there's quite a lot of conversation that we can really enjoy when Jupiter comes into the 3rd house. If we have argumentative things going on and in other parts of the relationship, and Jupiter is in the 3rd, that can contribute to that theme of argumentativeness. But there's also a way that we can agree on a lot of the little things. So if we have pettiness in the relationship and we have Jupiter coming into the 3rd, this can expand our view and bring some forgiveness and some perspective into a relationship that doesn't always have that. When composite Jupiter comes into the 4th house, we have our combined hope and enthusiasm and adventurous spirit coming into an area of life where we experience intimacy, home life, what's closest to us, what's private. It's a very generous place for Jupiter to be. The two people feel that there is a place of refuge, that the home contains understanding. It contains warmth, because we're bringing our ability to forgive and our ability to see the bigger picture into an area of life where we're looking for acceptance, where we're looking for intimacy and safety. So Jupiter in the 4th house greatly contributes to the feeling of security when it is there. Jupiter in the 5th house can be a very fun and sometimes audacious place for it to be. we're seeking the same kinds of risks, the same kinds of pleasureful activities, how we want to express ourselves in the moment, very much the same. So if we have risk-taking behavior, if we have over-encouraging behaviors between the two of us, if we're overdoing in probably in most any area of the relationship, and Jupiter comes into the 5th house, it will contribute to that theme of overdoing or overreaching. So we have to be careful about how we're encouraging each other and make sure that it's actually in each other's best interest, that it's not just in the interest of the moment, because balancing what we want in the moment and how we'll act in the moment with what is best for us in the long run and what is actually wise, that can be a tricky thing when Jupiter comes into the 5th house, because we are putting our faith and our hope in what is just spontaneous and right here and right now. So if we have overspending behavior, or if we have over encouraging each other when it comes to eating, or encouraging each other to do things that maybe one of us thinks is in the realm of our skills and our resources, but it may not be, we can have some consequences that can crop up with Composite Jupiter in the 5th house. So you want to look at what is the level of enthusiasm? Is it realistic in the relationship? And if not, then you want to pay attention to Jupiter being in the Composite 5th house. With Composite Jupiter in the 6th house, you want to look at a couple of things. You want to look at how Jupiter is aspected overall, and what is the level of optimism and hope and looking towards the bright side in the relationship in general, regardless of Jupiter. And then you also want to look at how much optimism and faith and hope and happiness and looking towards the bright side do each people have in the birth chart, in the natal chart. Is the glass half full or half empty? If we have very enthusiastic, hopeful, bright, bubbly personalities, and then we have Jupiter coming into the 6th house, and it's aspected, reasonably well. It's not aspected in a way that is showing overdoing or over-encouraging, and Jupiter's in the 6th, then this can be very good. It can keep things to a sort of a reasonable minimum, because we already have some over-expansive qualities, or some things going on within the personalities that are out of the scope of reason. And then we're encouraging each other in a way, we're combining in a way with Jupiter in the 6th house. That is about appropriating that enthusiasm to what's practical, what's actually reasonable. What can we actually do within the hours of our daily life? It can be very helpful for some people with some certain traits in their personalities. If we have two people who see the glass as half empty, if they're combining their negativity, if they have more pessimistic personalities, and then we're combining that, and then we have Jupiter coming into the 6th house, then that can make it more difficult for the couple to see things as positive. It can make it harder to see on the bright side. They'll focus more on the negative and the small things and what isn't working and what needs fixing, and it can be a more persnickety placement of Jupiter. That's not really the function of Jupiter. Jupiter is about largeness and the bigger scope of things. So you want to look at what is going on in the natal personalities. when you see Jupiter coming into the 6th. Now, if Jupiter is aspected in a way that we see over-encouragement or overdoing or excess, and it's combined from two more skeptical or pessimistic personalities, the natal charts, and then it's coming into the 6th house, that can show that we have some enthusiasm. We have some over encouragement that can actually be very appropriate in that particular relationship. So it's important to just look at everything. Jupiter in the composite 7th house is a lovely place to have it. There's a lot of gratitude for the relationship itself. We're thankful for the combining of the hopes and the dreams, and so the total is what we find our enthusiasm is fueled by. The totality of the combining of us. So there's a lot of feeling hopeful because of the relationship itself. So there's less focus on the individuals, less focus on me, and more focus on we. So they remember occasions. They like to commemorate the relationship. There's the buying of flowers and presents, and the hope and the enthusiasm that the two people have is fueled by the ritual of relationship itself. Jupiter in the composite 8th house is a more complex place for it to be, because this is the house of complexity, crisis, difficulties, ups and downs, taboos, regeneration, and our fears, and debt as well. So when composite Jupiter is in the 8th, we can, on the one hand, combine in such a way where we can encourage each other in hard times. We can carry each other through crisis. We can find refuge in each other when we are down and out. So in that sense, it can be very good. The other thing that can show up with Jupiter in the composite 8th house is that it can encourage any immoral traits or themes that people are dealing with in their own lives, in their own natal charts. So we can deal with taxes more, difficulties related to taxes with Jupiter in the 8th house. We can deal more with debt. We can deal more with consequences of being encouraged in ways that we're more allowing our dark side to take over, or some of the less savory characteristics that we have in our personalities. We can find that the other person's influence in the long run wasn't that helpful. So we have to be careful about how we're encouraging each other, because it can, again, feel right at the time, but when we look at the long-term consequences, we can have some difficulties there. Jupiter in the composite 9th house is a fun, friendly, and natural place for Jupiter to be. This is the home of Jupiter. So we combine our ideas about morality, politics, law, what gives us hope, religion. We combine all of that very, very well with Jupiter in the 9th house. Ideas about growth, exploration, what should we do next? What might be over the next horizon? It's a very encouraging place for Jupiter to be. If we have over encouraging things, if Jupiter itself is aspected in a way where our enthusiasm isn't always going to bring us the intended consequences that we're looking for, we can deal with with just themes of things getting out of control, getting out of proportion. It can be a more harmless place, though, for Jupiter to be, even if we have overdoingness going on in the relationship. Because there's a bounce back, there's a recovery that happens because of the amount of enthusiasm and encouragement and just willing to pick up and try again that each other really infuse into each other. So it's fun, it's exciting. There's a lot of friendship and just enjoying somebody to do things with. Composite Jupiter in the 9th house. Jupiter in the composite 10th house is a fine place for Jupiter to be. We show each other off. We promote each other. We want each other to feel good about how other people see them. We want to, we're proud of each other with composite Jupiter in the 10th house. This is a very public place where we have public experiences, where we go out into the world and claim our space and grow into our adult self and reach the pinnacle. And we want each other to achieve with composite Jupiter in the 10th house. We want to see each other do well. We want to see other people regard our mate as having done well. So it can greatly contribute to each other's confidence, each other's sense of being encouraged, because it's like we have our little fan club of one that is willing to do whatever they can to see us have the kind of success that we personally are looking for. And it does contribute to material success because the two people feel more capable as a result of each other's influence. They feel that they can accomplish. They feel that they can reach for more. So we can acquire more. We can do better in general, and it can be a very comfortable place for composite Jupiter to be. Jupiter in the composite 11th house brings a lot of acceptance and forgiveness. Even if we have very different opinions, ideas, belief systems, Jupiter in the composite 11th house will encourage us to accept each other's differences and each other's points of view. So our perspective is actually very similar, very, very much the same. We see many of the same of things in the same frame when composite Jupiter comes into the 11th house. So even if we do have ideological differences that are showing up in the synastry, we can still have a large area of agreement. We can still allow each other to have our differences. We can have this basis of tolerance that encourages the appreciation of each other's ideologies and different moral opinions that may, offend us if it were somebody else that we were involved with or talking to. So composite Jupiter in the 11th house makes us more friendly, more forgiving, more tolerant, more accepting, and we like to do things together. The ways that we'll spend our casual time, what we'll choose to do, our hobbies, that is a perennial sense of enjoyment for both people with composite Jupiter in the 11th. So vacations, we can definitely agree on that. And how we will make choices rather than respond to the have-tos of life. There's a lot of agreement when it comes to that with Jupiter in the composite 11th. Jupiter in the composite 12th house is actually a very good place to have it. It brings an acceptance of each other's mysteries. It allows unconscious yearnings, drives, what's under the surface to come to the surface, because we can feel that there's an acceptance of what those secrets are. So the hiddenness that we associate with the 12th house is more likely to have some openness to it with Jupiter in the 12th. We want to explore the secrets. We want to break new ground when it comes to acceptance or allowing our own weirdness to emerge and to be revealed. And we feel that there will be a reward for that in that there's new ground to break or new adventures. So it's a more psychological place for Jupiter to be, but it does contribute to a feeling of warmth, acceptance, allowance of our sort of irrational component parts to come to the surface, so we can look at that and we can both sort of absorb that together. So it can feel like we have a support system when it comes to dealing with our own darkness.